Is Harry Potter the strongest wizard? A question that's been asked over and over again. From the most die-hard Harry Potter fans who have read every book and watched every movie, to the most soft-core fans who've maybe watched a few movies, but they still love the series anyway. Today, that's what we've set out to answer, as well as breaking down all of his abilities. Now, half of you might say it's absolutely ridiculous to say Harry Potter is the strongest person in the entire wizarding world, while the other half would argue, well, he's the main character, isn't he? He has to be the strongest, right? And I can see points made from both sides, but what does the actual text say? What do we actually see when watching the movies? The first real duel Harry ever gets into in the entire Harry Potter series is in the dueling club in Chamber of Secrets. Now this goes both for the book and the movie, but in this scene, Harry is going up against Malfoy. They get up on the table and they are dueling, hence the name Dueling Club. Now, although this scene is pretty much the same from the book and the movie in Chamber of Secrets, there's still slight differences like the spells they use and how long the scenes were. But I'm gonna try referencing the book for more accuracy. In the book, Malfoy attacked Harry with the dancing feet spell, and in a return, Harry hit him with the tickling charm, but it didn't really go anywhere because Snape intervened. And after that, Malfoy then conjures a snake, and you know what happens next.
Serpent Sortier!
Not very much to go off of in terms of power right there, but that's the first glint, the first little hint we see at Harry's potential. Now, Prisoner of Azkaban is when we really start to see Harry's signature spell come to light. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about and not only Expelliarmus, but this is the book when Harry learned the Patronus charm. Now, Patronus is not specific to Harry, but it is a very difficult spell to learn that only fully grown wizards are usually able to do. And even then, most wizards still can't produce a full corporeal Patronus. Now, Harry didn't really have a duel per se in Prisoner of Azkaban, but Peter did take, I believe it was Lupin's wand, to transform himself back into a rat, and before that happened, I believe he did stun Ron and Crookshanks. And before he could get to Harry, Harry used Expelliarmus, meaning he was faster than Peter, a fully grown adult wizard. Now, that's not saying too much, but Peter is a marauder, and we don't have the full details, but it's alluded to, or we have to assume that he took part in making the Marauders map. Now, he could have just had his name on there because he is part of the group, but, you know, there's no proof either way. And moving past this, when Harry goes back in time, Harry and Hermione, and he's waiting for what he thinks is his dad coming to save him and Sirius's life, he realizes his dad is not coming and he has to do something himself. He has to step up to the plate and try to save himself from the mentors, I guess. And he does. He conjures the most powerful Patronus we've seen that far. And I don't think we've seen a more powerful one until Deathly Hallows, when Aberforth conjures it. And at 13, that's a huge feat. That already puts him above every wizard in his class. I'd say every wizard in the school at that point. And now don't get this twisted. At this point, I still don't believe he's strong enough to beat other wizards older than him in his school, at least, in like a straight up duel. But at this point, we obviously see he has the most potential out of anyone else. Now, Harry's next duel comes in Goblet of Fire, and this is when him, Malfoy, Ron, and Hermione are in an altercation outside of potions class. And Harry and Malfoy both shot a spell at each other, but it ricocheted, and Harry's spell hit Goyle, while Malfoy's spell hit Hermione. And if you haven't read the book, it's kind of sad when you think about it, because the spell that hit Hermione made her buck teeth grow even more, and she was already self-conscious about it, and they were abnormally large. You could tell something was obviously wrong, but then Snape comes up and he says he sees no difference. To a literal child. She then cries and goes to Madame Pomfrey's. Later, when Hermione meets up again with Ron and Harry, I believe it's Ron that comments on her and says something's different about her, and Hermione says that when Madame Pomfrey was shrinking back down her teeth to its original size, Hermione just let her keep going a little bit, because obviously Madame Pomfrey doesn't know the original size, only Hermione does. So she was so self-conscious about her teeth, especially after what Snape said to her, that she had her teeth shrunk down even more than they were before. She pretty much got cosmetic surgery, actually, at about 13, 14 years old. Next, we have Harry's first real-world duel, which is Harry versus Voldemort. Now, you could say this duel is kind of rigged, if you want to say that, because due to the twin cores of the wands, they couldn't really kill each other, which is why Harry was able to use Expelliarmus against Voldemort when Voldemort was using Avada Kedavra. And that's exactly what happened right here. Voldemort used Avada Kedavra and Harry used Expelliarmus, and their wands clashed. And eventually, through Harry's willpower, or However it happened, Priori Incantatem was activated through Voldemort's wand, giving Harry enough time to get away. Next we got Order of the Phoenix, and there were a good amount of duels in here, with pretty much all of them being at the end of the book when they were fighting in the Ministry. And our first duel slash fight we have, it was Harry, Hermione, and Neville. They were hiding in the time chamber from 2 Death Eaters. And as the Death Eaters forced their way inside the time chamber, Harry hit one of them dead on in the head with a stunning spell, knocking him unconscious. Immediately after that, Harry then tackled another one of the Death Eaters, who was trying to use the killing curse on Hermione. That shows instinct, that shows guts. Harry has those, and he's always had those. And you might not think that has anything to do with Harry being powerful or strong, but it does. See, the Death Eaters kind of have this thing where they think they're invincible, they think they're untouchable because Voldemort was, kind of. So they tend to just go into things head first without thinking at all, which usually leads to the defeat. After Harry stopped the Death Eater from killing Hermione, Neville then accidentally disarms both Harry and the Death Eater. But luckily, before the Death Eater could get his hands on Neville or his wand to kill Neville, Hermione was able to hit the Death Eater with Stupefy. He was then thrown into a bell jar, which then caused his head to turn into a baby and an adult continuously. That's tough. Next we have Harry, Hermione, and Neville once again versus Dolohov and Jugson. Dolohov and Jugson instantly hit them with impediment jinxes, separating them from each other. Hermione, being as smart as she is, used a silencing charm on Dolohov, preventing him from alerting any other Death Eaters. Harry then placed Jugson in a full body bind curse. Dolohov, being no pushover though, flicked his wand, making purple flames come out of it, and it struck Hermione in the chest, knocking her out. He then broke Neville's wand and kicked him in the nose. He then went to threaten Harry, but got distracted from that baby-headed Death Eater. And while Dolohov was distracted, Harry used Petrificus Totalis and won the battle. Next we have Harry, Luna, Neville, Ron, and Ginny versus some random Death Eaters. Now the leader of these Death Eaters pursuing Harry, Ron, Neville, Ginny, and Luna was Bellatrix. And our heroes were running away, and they went into the brain room, I believe it was, and they closed the doors, but Bellatrix, being Bellatrix, blew open the doors, and that was not an option. Luna was then hit with an impediment jinx, throwing her into the air and knocking her out. Ron then grabbed one of the brain things and it started attacking him, I guess. Harry then came to his rescue and cut off the tentacles, but in doing so, Ginny got hit in the face with a stunning spell and was knocked unconscious. It was then Harry and Neville versus Macnair, and Macnair did catch Harry to the point of almost strangling him to death. Neville, though, being as brave as he is, went to jab Hermione's wand into the Death Eater's eyes of his mask, letting Harry be free. Harry then angrily hit Macnair with a stunning charm. Look, all I'm saying is that lucky Harry wasn't evil, because if he was evil, he really would have did some damage. And maybe not even necessarily evil. If Harry would allow himself to go into the dark arts and just use a little bit of it, you know, like Mace Windu, I think a lot of these Death Eaters would have been cooked. Like, they're getting cooked by 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds. Come on now. Now we have Harry, Neville, and Remus versus Lucius. Harry and Neville tried to escape, but Lucius stopped them. Harry then gave Neville the prophecy and used a powerful impediment jinx on Malfoy, knocking him aside. Lupin then intervened and told Harry and Neville to run before Malfoy could get back up. Notice how Harry and Neville is the main one standing up in all these battles. They gotta say something, right? Like, that gotta say something to y'all. Next we have Sirius, Neville, and Harry versus Dolohov. Now, Dolohov hit Neville with the dancing feet spell, and then he tried to hit Harry with the dangerous spell, but Harry blocked it with Protego. Sirius then stepped in to save Harry. Dolohov then tried to hit Sirius with the spell, but before he could even attempt that, Harry got him with a full body bind curse. Now we have Harry versus Bellatrix. Harry, driven by nothing but anger and pure rage from the killing of his godfather, Sirius Black, chased down Bellatrix with absolutely nothing on his mind but putting her in the dirt. Harry then hit her with the Cruciatus Curse, but it wasn't really able to do anything except maybe give her a moment of pain. She then told him that to be able to do one of the unforgivable curses, you have to mean it. Especially the Cruciatus Curse, you have to want to cause pain. You can't be partly into it and partly out of it. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean you have to be evil to do these curses, the Killing Curse or Cruciatus, because we see Snape do it and he's not evil. I mean, he's evil to the kids, but overall he's not evil. Harry also did it to one of the Carrows in Deathly Hallows. He did the Cruciatus Curse on them after he spit at McGonagall And he meant that one. He meant that one for sure. Now I want to take a break real quick and talk about the different abilities we've seen from Harry showcased and how strong he is. He's fought fully fledged wizards. He's fought Death Eaters. This is much more impressive than any of his previous feats besides the Voldemort duel. But like we said, low-key rigged. If it was an actual duel where Voldemort was actually able to hurt Harry, he would have died right there. But these are real battles right here, and Harry's winning pretty much all of them. Next, we have Half-Blood Prince, and the first duel we're going over is Harry versus Malfoy in the bathroom. While Harry was following Malfoy, trying to figure out what he was up to, he came up on Malfoy crying in the bathroom. Malfoy then, I'm sure, was out of embarrassment and initial hatred for Harry right in that moment. He tried to use the Cruciatus Curse on Harry. Harry then responded with Sectum Sempra, which he had no clue what it would do. If he did, he wouldn't have used it on Malfoy. I see a lot of takes saying that Harry was evil for doing that. He didn't know what this spell did. It just said for enemies. Malfoy is an enemy. Also, Malfoy tried to use an unforgivable curse on him. It's not my fault that Malfoy got bad aim. Harry came out on top because he's better, right? Alright then. The next duel we have is Harry and Dumbledore versus the Inferi. When they were being overtaken, Harry tried to fight back with a multitude of spells, including the Full Body Bind Curse, the Impediment Jinx, Sectum Sempra, the list can go on. But since none of the Inferi could feel pain, it didn't work on them. Dumbledore then woke up from being unconscious and saved them by creating a ring of fire around them that the Inferi would not go through. Next we have Harry versus Fenrir Greyback. Now this fight was super quick. All that happened was Fenrir tried to rush Harry and Harry hit him with a Full Body Bind Curse and got him out of there immediately. It was really no difficulty at all for him. Now Harry came upon Ginny fighting Amicus with difficulty, but she was dodging all of the curses that was being thrown at her. Now the reason why all these jinxes were missing Ginny was because Harry gave it all his friends some of the Liquid Luck potion before he left with Dumbledore. Harry then hit Amicus with the Impediment Jinx and made him slam into the wall. Next we have Harry versus Thorfinn Roll, and all Harry did was hit him in the face with the spell and he ran away. Now we have Harry versus Electo and Amicus Carroll, and they followed him as he was running for Snape, and all Harry had to do was throw an Impediment Jinx at them and they were both knocked out. Next we have one of my favorite duels in all of Harry Potter, one of the most underrated as well, and that's Harry versus Snape. Now you can't even really call this a duel because there wasn't very much dueling going on. It was mostly Harry throwing spells and Snape just deflecting everyone. I mean, I guess it's a duel, I guess. It's just not very much offensive power coming from Harry. And this is where you see the first big power disparity between Harry and Snape, as well as Snape and the rest of the Death Eaters, because if Harry is able to take on a lot of these other fully fledged wizards that are Death Eaters, and Snape is taking care of him extremely easy, that says a lot about Snape's strength as well as the other Death Eaters. Now in this duel, Harry is throwing spell after spell at Snape, and Snape is deflecting every one, to the point where Harry says it feels like Snape is reading his mind. And at one point, before Harry even gets the incantation off, Snape deflects it. Snape already knows what he's going to do because he is reading his mind. And the reason I like this part so much is because Snape is inadvertently trying to save Harry and teach him again before he leaves. He's stressing to Harry how important it is to close his mind. He's showing Harry that if Snape can do this to him so easily, why wouldn't Voldemort be able to do the same? He's showing him what he needs to do to move forward, to be safe. Finally, we're getting to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. We're going to see the rest of Harry's duels, and we're going to find out if Harry really is the strongest wizard of all time. Now, these first few are from the Battle of the Seven Potters, and first up, Harry knocked down one Death Eater with a stunning spell and another one with the Impediment Jinx. Then we have Harry versus Stan Shunpike, and no, Stan is not evil. If you don't know and you are movie only, Stan is the night bus worker, and he was put under the Imperius Curse, and once Harry seen him, he tried to disarm him, which then Stan alerted everyone to know that's the real Harry, because Harry would not just try to disarm a Death Eater. He would stun them. He would try to kill them. Next we have Harry versus Voldemort, and this is when Harry and Hagrid were almost home free. They were almost at the barrier where Voldemort could no longer follow them, but Voldemort was still there and catching up to them, and Harry's wand acted on its own, shooting gold flame out of his wand and clashing with Voldemort's. Now Voldemort thought him using another Death Eater's wand would help him against this problem so he could actually kill Harry, but that did not solve it, and this is what we have. And that duel, that quick exchange, gave Harry and Hagrid enough time to escape. Now the Battle of the Seven Potters Brothers was epic, and it showed us a lot of what Harry can do. They didn't show nearly as much in the movie, but in the book, it showed us a lot more in Harry's decision making, and it showed us how good of a wizard he really is. Now we're getting closer and closer to finding out if he really is the strongest or not. Next we have Harry, Ron, and Hermione versus Dolohov and Raoul. And Dolohov and Raoul were stunned, and then Hermione went to perform a memory charm on them since she's the best, and she did it on her parents. So next we have Harry and Ron versus Bellatrix, Fenrir, Lucius, and Narcissa. Now first, Ron disarmed Bellatrix, and Harry then stunned Lucius. Bellatrix then grabbed Hermione and threatened to kill her right then and there, but then Dobby came to the rescue and dropped the chandelier, whatever it was, on top of Bellatrix, allowing Hermione to break free. Harry stole Bellatrix's wand, he got Ron's wand back, and then he took Draco's wand as well. Harry then used all 3 wands to stun Fenrir Greyback, and it makes you wonder, why don't wizards use more than 1 wand sometimes? Or there has to be some way to make 1 wand more powerful. I don't know. After they were all together, they escaped, but Bellatrix threw a knife, and it ended up hitting and killing Dobby. Rest in peace, GOAT. If you only watch the movies, you might not feel that same way about Dobby, or maybe you do, but in the book, he's in it a lot more than he is in the movies and plays a lot bigger part in more of the books. Next we have Harry, Ron, and Hermione versus Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. Now they were in the room of requirement, and Crabbe began hitting a bunch of piles of random junk and stuff. Crabbe then fired the Cruciatus Curse at Harry and the Killing Curse at Hermione. Harry, Ron, and Hermione then responded with stunning spells, full body bind curses, and disarming charms. Then as Harry, Ron, and Hermione continued their search for the diadem, Crabbe stupidly did the spell Fiendfire, which he could not control and is extremely hard to control, then setting the whole room on fire, and him dying also. Harry, Ron, and Hermione were then going down a staircase when they found Draco pleading with the Death Eater. Harry then stunned the Death Eater, and Ron punched Malfoy in the face, telling him, "We've saved your life twice tonight." Now finally, we have Harry versus Voldemort, the final duel, and why a lot of people think that Harry is solidified as the strongest wizard of all time. I mean, how could he not? He defeated the strongest dark wizard of all time. Dumbledore never even did that. Now me personally, I know this is a hot take, but I prefer the duel in the movie, actually. I think it's more epic. The final duel in the movie, when Harry grabs him and says, "Let's finish this the way we started, together." And then Harry and Voldemort go flying around, their faces merge and all that stuff. And then they land in the courtyard and they duel, and Harry wins, and it's just beautiful. Now, it's not really explained in too much detail how Harry won in the movie, but in the book, everything's explained in a lot more detail. Harry, even how I picture it, it's like a standoff and everyone's watching around, and Harry and Voldemort are walking, circling just like this while they're talking and trying to explain what's going on, or Harry trying to explain to Voldemort how his downfall happened, because a lot of the Death Eaters at this point have left Voldemort's side. After they've seen Harry rise from the dead, they're out of there. Harry's unkillable. They just seen him in front of their eyes in the Forbidden Forest get hit with the Killing Curse, and Narcissa confirmed his death, and now he's standing up fighting again. After they seen that, they was gone and they was out of there. They said, "Harry's easily the strongest wizard. We're out of here, buddy." But the way Harry wins this battle is he uses Expelliarmus, while Voldemort obviously uses his signature, the Killing Curse. And since the Elder Wand is Harry's and Voldemort is not the true master, it will not kill him. So the spell rebounds back onto Voldemort, therefore killing him once and for all. Now that is every duel Harry has been in, or at least the ones that matter. And we've seen Harry conjure spells that fully fledged wizards can't do, and he's done it as a teenager. And we've seen him duel with some of the greatest wizards in all of the wizarding world. So is Harry Potter the strongest wizard of all time? The answer is no. He's not, and let me tell you why. See, I gave the first hint at him not being the strongest when he was fighting Snape. Him fighting Snape and him beating Voldemort was only about a year off from each other. And in that year, he is not going to be strong enough to be stronger than Snape, and Snape was not stronger than Voldemort. And you might say, well, Bellerton, he beat Voldemort multiple times. He beat him 3 times in total. And while that might be true, it's certain circumstances that led up to that being possible. One is that in the end, in their final battle, where Voldemort finally didn't have any more defensive measures, protective measures, or anything for him, going for him on his side, he lost because the wand he was using belonged to Harry and not him. Now, this was a very carefully crafted plan. I give them that. But in a straight up duel, with them being both at their best and them being able to harm each other normally without anything else interfering, it would never gone that way. The only person who could fight Voldemort as an equal or stronger than him was Dumbledore, and Dumbledore was stronger. The only reason Dumbledore didn't pursue him more and try to actually kill Voldemort is because he wanted to finish off Voldemort on a bigger scale. He wanted to finish Voldemort off where it actually mattered, not short term, because of course Dumbledore could go after him and kill him, but he would eventually be back. Like Peter Pettigrew. Peter brought Voldemort back because he had nowhere else to go. He was a fugitive, he was scared, he had no allies, he's a rat, literally. And so the same thing would probably happen if Dumbledore just went after him and killed him anyway. Now in the movie, they made it more ambiguous as to who was stronger, Dumbledore or Voldemort, but in the book, it was pretty obvious that Dumbledore was the stronger one, and Voldemort, you kind of see the reason why he was always scared of Dumbledore and why he's avoiding him. Now, this doesn't take away from Harry's strength as a wizard. He's extremely strong, and he was the strongest wizard there, or had the most potential as early as his 3rd year at Hogwarts. And he could beat every person there in a duel, every student at least, in his 5th year. I can say that confidently because he did teach a lot of other kids how to do Defense Against the Dark Arts. And they've always made it to point out that Harry was the best one in his class at Defense Against the Dark Arts, and he definitely was in the whole school. No one has as much experience as him. And his decision making and his quick thinking when he's in a battle is what also puts him above the rest. Just not when you get to the heavy tiers, the heavy hitters like Bellatrix and Snape and Voldemort, Dumbledore, McGonagall, Flitwick, you know, all those powerhouses, all those strong teachers. Harry doesn't really compare, at least at this point in the story. Now, if you want to talk about him in his Auror days and the head of the Auror office days, yeah, we might have something to say there, because like I said, he had the most potential. 13 years old, able to conjure a fully fledged Patronus. That's no small feat. But when it comes to the battlefield, I don't necessarily want him as my first pick. Now, that's not to say he's not solid. He's amazing. As we all know this, we've just been over everything he's done when it comes to battle. And even though he's not the strongest, we still shouldn't talk down on what he can do and his accomplishments that he has done. Last time I checked, ain't nothing wrong with being top 10 or even top 20. That's still amazing. That's all I got for y'all, man. Let me know what you all thought in the comments. Who do you think the strongest wizard of all time is? Maybe give me your top 5 list too. And do you think Harry is the strongest wizard of all time? Or am I just chatting? I'm out.